Now, not everyone got to grow up as part of a big family like the Nolans here.
Angelica meets one group of abandoned children who had to look elsewhere to find their sense of home.
I'm nobody's child, I'm nobody's child.
Aberlour Orphanage was one of the last institutions of its kind in Britain. Its history began in 1875 when a small cottage in the village of Aberlour in north-east Scotland opened its doors to 4 motherless children. By 1928, Aberlour Orphanage had some 500 children, many of whom were not actually orphans, but simply poor, from broken homes or of single-parent families. For those that came here, it was a world within a world, and that time at Aberlour would shape them for the rest of their lives. This year is the bicentenary of Aberlour Village, and as part of the celebrations, it's holding a reunion for some of the old boys and girls who are at the orphanage. One of those who has travelled furthest to take part in the reunion is Professor David Devine, who lives in Canada. He lived at the orphanage from the age of 18 months until he was 11.
My mother's family were horrified at the fact that there was a black child in the local community and that their daughter had produced this black child. Part of the functioning of Aberlour Orphanage was to rescue the children from often maltreatment, take them into a country setting and basically rebuild the children and prepare them for adulthood. Now people say, God, this is Dickensian, this is awful. But the reality is, what life did we as children and young people have before the orphanage? The orphanage is salvation for us.
One of the key elements of the orphanage structure was that each child was allocated a house mother or father. For David Devine, this was Auntie Phyllis.
Well, I recognise the back of that head.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice to see you again.
Lovely to see you. Lovely to see you.
David talks about you devoting so much time, and you treated every child as special as your own.
Well, I hope I did. I don't think I ever sort of chose one in particular, you know. Maybe one sticks out in my mind more than others.
Yeah.
We used to have a story at bed.
That's right, I remember.
And then it was a case of going round all the beds and tucking them in and kissing them goodnight.
Auntie Phyllis gave us the strength to believe that we were okay and that we were loved and that we were worthy of love, because most of us have been dumped, ditched, and we had no one. All we had were care staff like Auntie Phyllis, and I adore this woman. I adore this woman.
I mean, tears. You'll have me in tears.
Ron Aitchison was taken into the orphanage at only 1 year old and stayed there until he was 14. Partly because the orphanage kept boys and girls segregated, he was 7 years old before he even realised that other members of his family were in there with him.
And this pal of mine said to me, "Do you see that girl over there? That's your sister over there."
That's how you found out your sister was here?
Yeah, I was somewhat taken aback, but as a child I never thought much of it. This was my real first introduction in my knowledge of being introduced to my brothers and sisters. And it's only really since I've left the orphanage that I've got to know my brothers and sisters better. Our parents weren't abusive or alcoholic or anything like that, you know, but they just couldn't cope with the number of children in these small tenement buildings. I thoroughly enjoyed my time at Aberlour, and somebody was making sure that I had clean clothes every week. I was getting fed 4 meals a day. If I went to school, you know, there was a structure in the school. For me, I was quite happy. I was perfectly happy.
Today, Aberlour Orphanage, now Aberlour Childcare Trust, is Scotland's largest children's charity. But the orphanage itself closed its doors in 1967, and all that remains today is the clock tower.
We come back to touch base with something that was fundamentally important to us. And if I hadn't had that lovely feeling of being wanted and respected and loved, I don't know where I'd be today.
Oh.
What a story.